Want to do the pledge? You want to do it? You can do the pledge. We can split U.S. taxes like you. Okay. All. Who's that? Okay. Yeah. He's what? Thursday, January 10th, 2023. The time is 7:01 p.m. I'll call this regular meeting of the Dickinson City Council to order. Item 1, the call to order and certification of quorum.
Councilmember Simpson.
Here.
Councilwoman Simpson.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Sweeten.
Here.
Brantley.
Here.
Councilmember Decker.
Here.
Councilmember Linton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item 2, the invocation. Pastor Simpson, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for every good and perfect gift that comes from above. We thank you for those who are here and those who could not be here and those who are online. We ask that this meeting be effective and efficient. We ask for your blessing upon this great city, its citizens, this county, this state, and this great nation. Keep us all under your protecting care. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
And Councilwoman Simpson, if you lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Move on to item 4, proclamations and awards, of which we have none this evening. So we will move on to item 5, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.0415. Item 5A, council comments. We'll begin this evening with Councilman Linton.
Mayor, council, everybody. Good to see you this evening. Yeah, we're going to get the mic right this time. I attended the Building Standards Commission meeting about Creekside Apartments right after our special council meeting on the 21st of December. I got to meet with the owners. The owners came out with their lawyers and spin doctors and what have you. It was what they said was really good to hear. I talked to them. I talked to the owner one-on-one and told them that what they had said was very positive. I hope they follow through with what they have said. And I know that the city will work with them if they choose to do that. So that was some very good news to hear about a very unfortunate situation. I also, for New Year's Eve, performed Auld Lang Syne with Dickinson PD Detective Alan Oliver here at City Hall, and it was good to give back with some of my music. Of course, opinions vary, but I'd like to thank Officer Oliver for participating in that. I also met with Director of IT Renee Valdez to discuss the RFP for improvements to the city's IT infrastructure, fiber disaster recovery, security network, VOP hardware, building security, AI cameras, so forth. And I'm currently evaluating both vendors. I also met with City Manager Theo Melanson to discuss our parks plan. That was a very good conversation. I hope that we have some kind of presentation here this year soon to the community to let them know exactly what we're thinking. Also attended the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce's monthly farmers market. And also wanted to make the announcement that the Bayou Animal Shelter, the adoptions are up 50%. Return to owners is up 20%. This is all based on last year's stats. Live release rate up 13% and currently at 95%. So we are a no-kill shelter with a 95 percentile survivability, which is awesome. Rescues are up 28% and donations can be made on the BAS shelter website. Please come and adopt an animal friend and volunteers are always welcome. I'd also like to mention remind everybody, the Dickinson Music Enrichment Center, founded by Charles Marcus, TDMEC, offers free music lessons, free musical supplies, and free instruments for children whose families fall beneath a certain yearly income level. You can check tdmec.org for more information. And I'm also offering lessons on piano, saxophone, clarinet, flute, and now bagpipes, which I'm sure that's going to be a very hot item. Also, I contacted Union Pacific Railroad again. I'm doing that weekly now about the crossing at 517. And so I'll get with Theo after to see what the best course forward with that is. But just FYI, folks, if you want, when you cross the railroad tracks up here, there's a small service module that has the identifier for that crossing, and also a 1-800 number that you can call. And you can also post a complaint on their website, making them aware that it's a rough crossing. More the merrier. Also planning on assisting the Festival of Lights with their display disassembly and storage. Attending the GCMCA meeting tomorrow evening, attending the strategic planning retreat on the 16th. Also wanted to remind everybody that COVID is still out there, and I have 2 family members that are currently going through it, and they're on the upswing, which is good, but it really hit them hard and it's knocked them down for about a week and a half. Also wanted to remind everybody about the science, the Comet 2022 E3 ZTF will be visible between January 14th and February 16th. And if you look at the Ursa Major, that would be the Big Dipper between Ursa Major and the North Star. It'll be a path that is perpendicular to that, to those 2 spots in space. That's probably going to be the easiest way for me to describe that. So look that way. And SPX 26 will be splashing down at 4 o'clock this morning. And so I'll be supporting that after I get out of council meeting. And I also wanted just to mention real quick, the last council meeting was slightly animated. So I wanted just to remind everybody why I chose to do this. You can't read my mind, so it's best if I just tell you. I chose to do this to try to give back to the community and to make educated, rational decisions with no drama. That is the theory. And so I'm doing the very best I can, doing my homework, and I want the citizens to know that. I also, when I came up here, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I've mentioned that before, as far as the current political climate that we have in our country and what I was gonna run into up here on council. But thankfully, what I have run into is a lot of cooperation, and even with disagreements, we can still talk through them. And so the citizens need to be aware of that, and very thankful that their city council is functioning. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Decker.
Thank you. Glad to see the new faces. The old ones are familiar. Hope everybody had a good New Year and Christmas. Festival lights progressing in the tear down. We do have the rain. That's been a problem. Talking about rain, last Friday, we had 1.5 inches at my house. Previous to that, 2 weeks before, I had 5. And the event that it caused scared a number of people on Tanglebriar, which is across from the elementary school on Hughes Road. The water came from the ditch over the 2 corner houses and progressed on down Tanglebriar trying to get to the bow. Why? It's plugged somewhere. And I would hope that Theo, I went to the city hall. It was going over the Hughes Road in some places, but between Palm and the pipeline ditch, it just couldn't get out. And 5 inches, a lot. Hope we can do something about that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Brantley.
Thank you. Thanks everybody that's here tonight. Thanks everybody that's online. I personally appreciate everyone that's here to participate in your government. The ones who are here to speak. I also want to wish everybody a happy new year. I'm excited about what this year has to bring. I started a while back. I want to try and recognize staff and volunteers in each one of the meetings for the job that they do. I'm going to do something starting this year a little bit different. I know that the focus for staff this year, or especially the beginning of this year, is on the SHINE principles. And so I'm going to recognize staff and volunteers in each meeting for their exhibition of the SHINE principles. So I want to start with Ms. Shauna Bellows and Herman Meyer for the work that they did at Creekside, exhibiting service, excellence, and nobility. I'll get to where I can speak in just a minute. And then I also want to recognize Jeree Hefner, Colin Coker, and Hank Doogie for exhibiting service, humility, and nobility. They also worked very hard at Creekside, and that's a very tough situation. But they got together and went and bought a bunch of toys. Colin dressed up as Santa Claus and provided Santa Claus and toys for the residents of Creekside, the kids at Creekside. Those kids don't have any idea what's going on, and so they took out the time out of their day to organize a Christmas event, a toy drive, and give those kids something great for Christmas. So thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Shauna, Herman, Colin, Jeree, Hank. Thank you for everything you do. That's all I've got.
Councilman Wilson.
After trying to follow you three, you really run out of things to say other than welcome to all of y'all to the new year. Just remember that it's this great country that we live in that allows all of you to come forward to a council meeting such as this and complain, which is rarely done. Thank us for something we've done. I think I can count it all on one hand and still have fingers left at a time. So I've been thanked over the years. But anyway, this is what these meetings are about. They're about you. They're about y'all's ability to be able to come up here and let us hear your opinion about things that we should do within the confines of the law. Thank you.
Well, Walter, I'd like to thank you, Councilman Wilson, for those comments. So you can add, that's two, maybe, or one, maybe. Councilwoman Simpson.
Oh, Councilman Wilson, are you waiting until after the meeting to sign up for the bagpipe lessons?
I want to do it right now. I want to know one thing. Do you get to wear the skirt?
It's a kilt.
So you don't need the bagpipes. It's okay.
Any other parts of the attire are a mystery.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
moving on. No, that's not my plate. Councilwoman, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's meeting. We appreciate your time being here and also tuning in online. Over the weekend, I had the pleasure of visiting Bayou Animal Services to make a donation of some extra supplies I had laying around the house. I got the information I needed to start volunteering there. The shelter staff has comprised a very large and detailed book of every volunteer job that's available there at the shelter, everything from laundry to walking the dogs. They have visuals of where you can find things, how you can kind of be a self-starter there to be able to start doing the volunteering on your own. All you have to do is go visit them and get a small orientation. You can check out their Facebook page or the website for more information. Dickinson ISD is taking applications for bus drivers. We need some really great people to join the team and drive some kiddos back and forth to school. Training is provided. We've got great benefits, great vacations. You don't need any previous experience. Visit dickinsonisd.org for some more information. Yesterday was National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, so I wanted to say thank you to all of our officers and staff at Dickinson Police Department for their service to our citizens. Thank you. Dickinson Historical Society is working to plan the 2023 Wine and Roses event. This will be held on April 21st at the Dickinson Railroad Museum. We will have entertainment and dinner and dancing, all benefiting the future projects of the Historical Society. Check out information on their website and their Facebook page. Finally, I want to give a special thank you to the Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department for not sending 1, 2, 3, or 4, but 8 firefighters to my house on Christmas Eve when I had to call for a small fire in my oven. Everything was fine, and I was very appreciative of the men and women who had to come to my house in a very short response time, I might add, on Christmas Eve. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And special thank you to Marjorie and Keith for their assistance as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, council, city staff, citizens. Welcome. I hope you all had a happy holiday season, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Happy New Year as well. I hope I hit them all. Since our last regular council meeting, we had a special meeting where we appointed someone else to the Building and Standards and Board of Adjustments meeting, and have also attended the Building and Standards meeting, the Planning and Zoning meeting, and then the second Building and Standards follow-up meeting on January 3rd. I also attended the Houston Galveston Area Council meeting, the closeout for the year, and the Budget and Finance meeting going forward. They approved their $492 million budget. Also, I've been doing some being involved in the IT RFP process to upgrade our infrastructure for the city, very much needed, and also plan to attend the planning retreat as well on the 16th of this month. And I do also want to thank our staff for the work that they've done on Creekside, working in conjunction with M.I. Lewis Social Services as well, to put together an extensive documented package so that we weren't just arbitrarily acting on behalf of these people in need of help. There was plenty of reason to do it the way that we have done it going forward. And so they make this easy. I tell staffers each day that they make this serving on this council very easy to go forward. But that is all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And I'd also like to welcome everyone here this evening and echo several other comments and hope that everybody had a great Christmas. Councilwoman Simpson alluded to this. There is a new school year going on. So I always like to say, watch what you're doing out there. There's kids running around. If the bus has a stop sign out, don't go past it. You have to wait. Doesn't really matter where it is. So please be conscientious of that. You don't want to have a tragedy on your conscience and on somebody's family. So please be careful out there with that. Also want to thank the Building Standards Committee for the work that they've done, as well as the staff, particularly Shauna and Herman. But there's others as well for the work that they've done on that. It is a really awful situation. I think over the long run, it's going to be better for everybody, but unfortunately, it causes problems, and many of you have done some things to try to help make that a little bit better. So, thanks to anybody who has played a positive role in that process. Also, like to point out that the legislative session began, I believe, today was the first day. So, depending on how you feel about things, either most of us just, in government, we just hope it ends uneventfully, generally. So I do urge you to kind of keep an eye on things. I know the city will be keeping an eye on things that may affect our city or cities in general, and try to keep people informed of what's going on throughout the session. So please, please remember that is happening. Also like to thank in particular, the police department and the chief, and as well as a few individual officers. I had just kind of some miscellaneous issues here and there, and they did a great job in very quickly following up with those residents, talking to them, getting their issues addressed. And I'm thankful for that, and helping to kind of build that goodwill. So I appreciate you all doing that. And yeah, so anyway, thanks for being here tonight, everybody, and hope we have a great new year. So moving on to item 5B, the city manager update. I will turn it over to our city manager, Theo Melanson.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much. We have a few items this evening. First one, I want to take a moment and do a recognition. I have a couple of staff members I'd like to come up, if they would be so kind as to come up. I'd like for Mr. David Lopez and Ms. Dewana Pleasant, if y'all could come on up. I'd like to recognize you guys for some great customer service and talk a little bit about it. I also would like Gina Vega to come on up too, if she's in the audience. Gina, are you here? Oh, there you are. The big thing that we're, really trying to push in 2023 is really trying to level up staff or staff expectations for service around the city. Obviously we can't, bat 1,000. Nobody does, but the goal is to try to be the best that we can be. And I wanted to take a moment to highlight David and Dewana, and I have Gina up here because Gina is a part of our executive leadership team. She is our court administrator, and she took the time out of her day when she saw great service to highlight it. And I want to make sure that she's, recognized for what is about to, what we're about to go over here. And David and Dewana work in our permit office here. They work at the phones ringing constantly and things going all over the place and papers everywhere and trying to get permits through. But one day during the when it was extremely cold, an older couple had come in and had that they had a power outage and that they came to City Hall for some help. And that both David and Ms. Dewana came to the rescue and tried to figure out how to help them. And basically, they thought they had paid their utility bill, but they had not. And so once they kind of figured out what the issue was, they were able to work with the electric company and get some things worked out. And basically electricity was going to be restored and so forth. But in the meantime, they made them some hot cocoa to keep them warm from the cold weather. When they left, Ms. Dewana had noticed that, and this couple were in their 90s, as she had left her purse at City Hall. And so David was attempting to make phone contact, but then they heard that the phone itself was in the purse that was left behind. That doesn't really help the situation. But Ms. Dewana had remembered that they had talked about going to Dickinson Barbecue before going back home. And so Ms. Dewana gets into the vehicle with the purse and is trying to track them down at Dickinson Barbecue, but they're not at Dickinson Barbecue. And so then she's calling the police dispatch to say, hey, listen, if you get someone calling in saying that they've lost their purse, I have it. Reach out to me and I'll figure out a way to link up with them. They never did go to the PD. Ms. Dewana went to their home because they had left their home address as part of this conversation. And so actually Ms. Dewana waited at their home to give them her purse and her cell phone to this couple that were in need, thought they had lost electricity, wasn't sure why. Once power was restored, got the cell phone and David working alongside to try to give the best customer service possible. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize them for their great service to our citizens of Dickinson. Look, turn around. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's amazing. And that's the type of service that, we strive for and really want to take a moment to recognize that, because that's really going above and beyond and really wanting to serve our residents. So next up, we have an enthralling presentation from our library director, Julianne Lane. You didn't have any trumpets or anything.
Well, I wanted to dance, but I controlled myself. I'm trying to do better in the new year, and that was my attempt. Now, the speech might be a little different, but All right, so I gave you a couple handouts, guys, in the packet for you to look over a little bit. And as I talk through it, I just want you guys to know where we've been, where we are, where we're going at the public library. A lot of it, we get focused on numbers. I'm a data person. I'm here to explain some of these numbers that I provided you today and where we're at now and where I want to take the library, because Mr. Melanson has helped me finish a whole 4-year strategic plan in one. So just so you get an idea of where we're planning to move forward. So when we look at this, my mission statement for the library is Dickinson Public Library provides a free and open access to information in order to develop an informed community. As we know, this is important. Along with that, we strive to be the welcoming heart of our community. We're all come to learn, discover, create, and connect. And I stress all. That's very important to me. And also our value statement, and this is what we hold very short. I'm sorry. I'm like, to provide free access to an inclusive and equitable collection of materials and services for, again, all the community we serve. Libraries today, I think you all know, are being challenged right and left, and I want to make it very clear that we are very dedicated to making sure we're serving everyone in the community, not just some. So With that being said, I want to move to the impact report for 2021-2022. This was a first year solely coming out of COVID where we felt confident to saying we're about 85% back to normal. This isn't 100% back to normal, but as close as we've gotten in the last 2.5 years. With that, we've had 40,606 visitors walk through our door that last fiscal year. That was amazing for us. Prior years, it was not anywhere close, even through COVID. With that, we introduced 862 new card members to the Dickinson Public Library. And our total card hold numbers, and though this looks high, remember we serve all of Galveston County of 300,000+ people, sits at 18,376. I can say very confidently that active card members probably hold at about 4,500 to 5,000. But they all hold it. We use ebooks, everything else, so take that with a grain of salt. Materials circulated last year was 41,677,000 materials in 1 year. So I think of that one per visitor. So I was excited about that. With that, we also do interlibrary loans, which for some of you who don't understand what that is, we loan to other libraries in the whole state of Texas, and we also borrow from them. So when we don't have a book that a patron needs, we can borrow them from one of the other libraries in the state. So that's a cumulative number of both together. With that, social media reach, 55,290 people. I think all of you who do follow the library, and if you don't yet, you better all start. Everybody hear me? I appreciate that. Miss Sue is my high five. But with that, we rely heavily on getting the word out through social media, and anybody out there shares, it helps us tremendously beat all those fun Facebook algorithms that we just need to beat. So get the word out about your public library, share those so our social media reach goes even farther. Also, website hits, 19,665. This year, we implemented a new website. So this was with our prior year website, which I was ashamed to say was not as updated as we liked. We had staff turnover, so it wasn't fully used to its capacity, but we were very pleased with those numbers, getting people to understand that clicking on that website does connect them with information and access to services. So with that, my next line is my favorite line of our impact report. $466,790.86 was the amount of money your public library saved your community members. So instead of going out and purchasing books, this is the total amount they saved by coming to the library and checking out materials. This is why it's key for us to continue supporting the library, providing the materials that the community wants and needs. Programming is our next key on this report. On-site programming was only about 281 programs, which is not our normal. Next year, you'll see that increase greatly. But with that, we still had 3,976 attendees. We contribute a lot of that to our summer reading program, which I will be relying heavily on you guys this summer to be a part of and participate. So I'm excited to implement you all into that. And that we also have off-site programming, 14 only last year with 392 attendees. A lot of that is when we go out to the schools, go out to daycares, and we count every head, obviously. So. But know that everything that we've done last year, we're going to improve on this year. Moving back to my where we have been, where we are, and where we're heading. Many of you know that have been here a while know that the Dickinson Public Library started out as the Mayor's Memorial Library. I could do a whole session on the history of the Dickinson Public Library, and I will save you that tonight. But no, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from a lot of the community members in Dickinson made it possible for me to stand here in front of you today, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate every single one of them, and know that I plan on making sure I carry that torch forward in my tenure here at the Dickinson Public Library. But with that, where we are now, this is sort of a visual of where we are and where I plan on taking us even better this year. We have increased our staff, and with increasing the staff, we're going to increase all of our programming that we do. We're going to get on the floor more. We're going to engage more with the community. That is our plan. We also, sorry, I bullet pointed. I was telling Theo I was trying to bullet point this down so I didn't bore you all tonight. In this year, we have done the first inventory of the library, the weed of the library. We've added RFID tagging. And yes, this is within the first 6 months. Can you imagine how my staff loves me now? So with that being said, we're still moving forward. We're now gentrifying the library. So your library, when we are done, is going to look a lot like Barnes & Noble when you walk in. Our end goal and the end game of it all is to make it as easy as possible for the public to come in and find the information they need as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. I'm sorry. See, I'm all nervous. I'm like, I don't know why. This isn't my norm. I didn't get to dance. I'm going to blame it to the dancing or lack thereof. With that being said, having the new website, making it easier for people to understand what we provide, what we're going to provide, and then implementing all of our new ideas that we have moving forward, because my staff is very savvy and they're coming up with some fabulous ideas. Be ready to see some great programming this year. My last and final thing is the most exciting news, I think, as of yet, is the management district has granted us funding to put in new shelving and furniture in the library. We're going to do a major refresh in the library with the help of Theo and his ingenuity. But what that's going to make it is that the staff is going to be out on the floor more than behind the wall where we have to be right now, because all we have is one circulation desk behind a pillar. We're going to move that circulation desk in the middle of the library, and we're also going to move circulation desks within the library for the staff to be manning all the time. So you guys are going to see a new face of the Dickinson Public Library. It's not going to just be a library. It's going to be your community center for y'all to come in and enjoy. So I look forward to inviting you all to that grand reopening, but also don't stop coming in now. Come see us. The librarians work really hard and they love to show off all of their work. So I hope I did that quickly. Strategically moving forward, I did forget that. Be on the lookout. I plan on bringing more and more technology into the library to really keep pace with what's going on around us and keeping community members engaged in what we're doing. So that's the main focus.
Yep.
So with that, ta-da.
Thank you, Julianne. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Council, as if you remember a couple of months ago, I told you that we were going to kind of on a monthly basis have a different department come kind of giving you a short synopsis of kind of where we've been, where we're going, and so forth. And so next month you'll be seeing Bayou Animal Services coming to the fore and doing a presentation talking about programming and things of that nature. So I do want to take a moment to say, Julianne and I, we've been working on really trying to get library strategic planning done, in a timely manner so that, people can reap the benefit of a lot of the community programming that they had. But, with the current makeup of the shelving, the furniture, I think we also have the self-checkout kiosk. That's how's that going so far? Is that going well? So apparently it's more of a children's toy, but we'll get there. That's all right. They're getting there. So what you're going to see over the next couple of years is a real refresh of the library, and really to make it the focal point that we want it to be a cultural center. And that's kind of what the goal is in the long run, is to have a good set of books. That was one of the big things, is the reason why we needed to weed through. I don't know if we had ever done a full go through the entire catalog. Who's checking out books? Not really who, but like what books are being checked out, and if it's not being checked out, if that's not something that is being an asset to the community, let's go find what books they do want, that type of stuff. And so we've been trying to do that because I think it had kind of become a repository a little bit. And so we just wanted to work through some of those things. So kudos to Julianne for that. The next thing I did want to kind of let you guys know is I did want to kind of give you guys the heads up on kind of where we are with Creekside a little bit. Just know that stat is while we've made some major work toward securing the property. The city is currently talking with the current ownership. Their representatives for a possible redevelopment. The ownership, the main owner, Mr. Culkin, I believe the father of that, Dr. Yes, the Dr. Culkin is stepping in and being more, involved, is working directly with Cortland Holman, our EDC director, to talk about possibilities on that property to get it back to health and safety standards, but also to add value to that property. So just stay tuned as we kind of try to work through those things as we're securing the property and so forth. So good news to hear that. Hopefully, as Councilman Linton said, hopefully that's going to bear fruit. The next thing I was going to kind of let you guys know is that you guys were gracious enough to let us go through a rewrite of the Unified Development Code. This is so that we can modernize our development code for building standards in the city and kind of the process by which we do that, including a new new zoning overlay of the city that really makes sense for especially the corridors along 517 State Highway 3. It also allows more flexibility of development. It's not the old school type of zoning. When I say that, a lot of zoning codes you have to build a house between 1,800 and 2,000 square feet to be in a certain, single family zoning district. And then the next one has to be, 1,600 to 1,799. And so a lot of cities in this day and age have moved toward more grouping of zoning to try to make it more about, are these uses congruent to be next to each other? Less about square footages of houses being next to the other square footage of houses, because that really doesn't, it makes it hard to zone, especially in subdivisions that may have larger homes, smaller homes, and that's how they were master planned from the beginning. So a lot of the work that we're doing right now is getting together the background document review for us to also begin the process of putting together a master parks and trails and recreation plan. So we're going to be bringing together stakeholders to then work with us on a master plan for the city on recreation, trails, and parks. So those two things are kind of going simultaneously right now. And so I just wanted to let y'all know that we are on the way, and that basically most of the background work is done, and we'll be moving into a lot of the public input portions in the near future. And so you'll be seeing that in a much more visible way. But first, I had to do the homework behind it. The next thing I just want to bring up to you guys, on January 24th, what's going to be coming before the council is a set of roads or a contract that's going to allow Public Works to begin our annual paving for the year. So be on the lookout. That list is going to be on your way. We're going to be doing a lot of paving this year. We're also working with, we were gracious enough to have funding in the past from the management district. We do have some opportunities to work with, them again, but also with the EDC, because some of these projects do kind of align with some commercial properties as well. And so I'm very excited to be able to at the next council meeting present the full list of kind of what we are anticipating to pave to go in line with the list that Hewitt Zollers had created for us on the pavement assessment program that we have. As of right now, we're also working on the Hughes Road project and getting some design work done on the roadways to get it. I think our most recent talks are to get it to where we kind of maintain the current width, because I think there was some, because of possible curb and guttering, this was going to narrow the road. We're going to get that back. We're looking at redesigning it out to put the shoulder back on. And so just letting you know, that is that $49.2 million grant that we've received. And so just kind of be on the lookout for that. Also, we are be on the lookout. We're also going to be receiving about another $1 to $2 million thanks to the HGAC efforts in reallocation of flood mitigation funding. The next thing, West Gum Bayou is still moving forward. Obviously, we've run into, anytime you deal with anything of this scope, whenever you're dealing with like a multi-million-dollar project for detention and drainage, we run into some issues at California and 29th, dealing with some head wall issues. We also had a water line that at the time I don't think anyone knew existed on any side. So we're kind of working through that, but we are still moving forward. And that as of right now, we are still We have basically we're putting in our paperwork to start the reimbursement process from that project. So just want to let you know about that. And that's as of right now, that's all I have on that. Let's see, make sure I don't have anything else. The only other thing, we do have a special guest this evening, Mayor, just so you know. I believe we have our county treasurer here this evening. And I know we have an item that's kind of near the bottom. If you want to move it up either before or after consent agenda, just wanted to put that on your radar because he's at the very end.
All right, moving on to item 6, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Okay. Yeah, right. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council may not deliberate. We have several of you signed up for specific agenda items, and we'll get to that when we get to those items. We only have one comment signed up in general, and that is Michelle Forsberg. Pardon me if I mispronounced that.
Hi, I'm Michelle Forsberg. I live at 4306. It's okay. Yes, you actually did well. I live at 4306 Country Club Drive. I have a problem with the driveway and drainage. You mentioned that on the December 29th, your neighborhood flooded, my garage flooded. Dickinson came out, they put a new driveway in and blocked the drainage for the driveway. I've been working on this since August 25th is my earliest written information I have, August 25th of 2001. And the driveway still isn't right. So I bought a culvert. City of Dickinson said I had to buy a culvert because I wanted to put it in an adjacent ditch to make a new driveway. They came out March, I think, and put the culvert in under the existing driveway. They went into the yard, got the culvert, put it there. That's not where it was supposed to go. When they put it there, they extended the driveway and blocked the drainage. So now I'm flooding, not on a normal rain, but like we had Thanksgiving Day, like we had December 29th into my garage. I've met with the city manager, I've met with Chase on this, and they put in a new driveway, but now I have a 20-foot driveway, 2 5-foot extensions that they took the paving off of. And so the dirt is just going down into the ditch, which is covering the, starting to cover the ditch as well. I'm not sure how to move forward on this. There's just no excuse for it anymore. It's, I brought it to everybody's attention. I actually sent you guys each one of you an email the night of the 29th with photos of it. I think it was like 12 a.m. because we were out pushing water out. But we need to get this solved before my house floods and Dickinson has a whole different problem. It's going to cost you a lot more to fix my house than it is to fix the driveway. So, all right.
All right. Thank you. If we could follow up on that. Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items there will not be a separate discussion on these items unless the council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda. Now, we do have we've had a request, Councilman Wilson, to remove item 7D. So if we have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda, we would hear that now.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion to approve the consent agenda accepting item 7D by Councilman Brantley, a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we will move on to item 7D, consideration and possible action concerning a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing the city manager. No, I think that's the wrong one. You meant
E. You meant E.
B, not B. D. Okay.
The D.
That is the one you want?
Yeah, the one about Social Security.
No,
That's E.
that's E. We just approved the other one.
Guess we just go ahead and approve E.
No. Let's talk about E. He
You're
meant
good.
E.
Okay. Let the minutes show that we approved accepting item 7E. Thank you. All right. So moving on, item 7E, a resolution of approving a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing the city manager to allocate funding for the city's participation in the Social Security Benefits Program.
Mhm.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilman Brantley, second by Councilman Simpson. Discussion. Councilman Wilson.
Yes. In a situation like this, I know what we're looking at to do this is to, it gives us another tool on hiring potential employees. There's some cities that do this and some cities that do not. But like I've always been, as long as I've been on this council, I'm always concerned about the price of what something costs. I checked on the numbers, and the numbers are very significant in the first year, possibly not. I was given both scenarios, which I think, like I said, my concern is when you spend, and the number I was given, I might as well just say it is close to $500,000, or it could be as little as $250,000. Now, that's a lot of money to a city our size, and I'm concerned. I won't be here for the next budget anyway, but I am concerned about the people that will be following me into office about when we spend this money which is quite a bit. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, last year I asked about why we reduced the taxes $300,000, which would have already covered this or part of it. But anyway, I'm very concerned about spending money forward, and because this isn't the only thing that we've planned expenditure for the next budget year. And I just wouldn't feel right leaving office without bringing us to attention of the amount of money this is, because not only does it affect the budget as to paying this out, to me, it affects the ability for the city to do future raises, negotiation with the police department, things like this. So that's my concern.
Sure. Well, and first, so we can kind of introduce the topic a little bit. So where we're at as a city is obviously we're in a world where obviously we're in a competitive world of trying to recruit the best that we can. And while it's true that some employers do not participate in Social Security, I would say that we are we're not an outlier in Galveston County, but we are an outlier in the nation, generally the region for sure. And one of the big issues we run into is obviously if we're hiring talented people that have many years of service, more likely than not even just more likely, almost guaranteed they're looking at coming from currently an employer that contributes to Social Security, and we do not. There's a huge windfall exemption provision that happens if you don't reach your 120 quarters on Social Security. So if you've done 10 years with or 15 or 20 years with one employer, then you come to Dickinson and you don't add up any more quarters because we don't participate. And so what ends up happening is there's a humongous cut somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2/3 of Social Security benefits because you haven't been paying in up to your 120 quarters. So what happens to us in that situation is if we're trying to get middle management, executive staff, likely when we're recruiting people, they're coming from employers that were Social Security. So it really cuts out a lot of people who will say, wait a minute, I'm only 10 years from getting my quarters. I'm only 8 years from getting my quarters. I would take a significant 2/3 cut from Social Security to join the city of Dickinson. What is sitting before you today is not a binding resolution. This is like the first step so that Social Security would talk to us. Basically, it's us saying, yes, we are interested. We want to fund Social Security. We would like to find out what it would take for us to get to the next step. Truth be told, I think and I'd have to get Carrie Lynn to explain, but there are binding steps to this. But as of right now, Social Security is at a standstill to even really discuss any further. If we don't have something coming from the council saying, yes, because I mean, I can talk to them, I'm interested in Social Security, but what Social Security basically said, we really won't even really run the true, numbers and figure out everything and really start working on what a timeline of about the next 12 to 18 months look like until we get something from the council saying that they have an interest in entering the program. So that's kind of what is before you today, is that resolution saying that y'all have an interest so that we can then move forward and start building an action plan over the next 12 to 18 months.
And I assume we would make a final budget decision.
Yes.
This budget year.
And
The next budget year.
Yeah, it would either be, it could even be into the following budget year after that, depending on the timeline that it would probably be in a future budget.
So this doesn't mean we're doing it forever okay.
No, it's really just for us to be able to actually start having conversations with Social Security, because I'm kind of an unauthorized agent until further notice kind of thing is how they're treating it. I'd also say too, the other thing too, is that I don't disagree. It is an expensive endeavor. But I would also say on the other side of it too, is if I were to say, one of the things and I'm very complimentary of the council, and I think employees have been extremely complimentary generally of how we've dealt with the health insurance issues that we've had of the past. And one of the things that we've asked and Social Security has offered is that it be an opt-in. It's not a requirement. They do have that as an option, by the way. I mean, they can say you're in Social Security and therefore you will contribute this amount so everybody will. But there is the other option I think would be more palatable, would be an opt-in. Those that want in can join. That means that we'd match that 6.2%. That's the number that as of it ends up being about a 6.2% addition on payroll per employee that opts in. But that means they're putting in their 6.2, you're putting in 6.2 as an employer. So that's how we kind of got to the high. When he said there's a fluctuation, it depends on how many opt in. On the high end, if everyone jumped in, it's about 500,000. If it's somewhere in the middle, which is kind of where we think it would land, but we're not going to budget it that way, would be somewhere in the 250 to 300 range.
Councilman Wilson, you had another
Well, the reason I brought this up was for discussion and clarification exactly what we were planning on doing, because the way I read part of it, I mean, we're looking at maybe next year's budget, which we still could be looking at, but I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to clear it up to see exactly how this could progress.
Well, and also
For
understand
information for everybody.
then and again, we don't have all of the steps because they don't really waste their time till they're talking to an authorized agent. But the one thing I was going to say is that before any of that can happen, we have to basically have we're gonna have to vote on approving it, and then it still has to go to an election of the staff if they want to do it. Now, in an opt-in, it probably wouldn't be hard to pass it, but obviously on a mandatory and an involuntary would be a very different case. Because I mean, think about the people who may have been here for 25 years and have never paid into Social Security. Now you're saying in the last 5 years or 7 years, they're going to have to force them to pay in. They'll never reach 120 quarters. That's, I've thought, unfair to those. So the opt-in allows people who want in to get in, those who don't want to get in, not to get in.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
So what would be the
Councilman Brantley.
motivation for not participating in Social Security benefits?
Well, obviously,
Why are we were incorporated in 1977. Why is it 2022 before we're making a decision whether we're participating in Social Security benefits?
well, I would say is that, there's a history to it. If you look, I mean, obviously, then there are case studies involving, entities that have opted out, and some have offered an alternative retirement, as maybe, some entities around the country took this short period of time in federal government history where there was a chance for local governments to opt out of Social Security. Now, when the city of Dickinson, kind of at the same time as the county of Galveston and some other cities, kind of had the idea, to offer something other than Social Security. Maybe they would take the 6.2% and put it into something similar to 401k. In our scenario, we were talking about either 403B or 457, and they would put 6.2% into that. We'll put in 6.2%. We'll let the market, do, and that would be so you'd have TMRS and that. That's what a lot of cities and counties have done around the country. A lot of them got out of Social Security and never offered an alternative and took the 6.2% savings and waved to people and said, we cut your taxes. Congratulations. We don't have to pay that as a payroll now. And so
I work at one of those places. So the state runs the insurance for us. And so they did that and they regretted it because it has hurt recruitment and stuff, because people come in and they can't get it. And ours was irrevocable. So we're lucky. In higher ed, we can they can never opt back in.
So, I mean, I think that it was, and so to your point, I mean, you're asking why not. I mean, I don't know what the motivations of Dickinson was when it was opted out, but if you kind of see around the country, people have different motivations. One was, hey, put 6.2% back in your pocketbook and you figure out what you want to do with it. We're not going to match you with it. Another one was, we're going to make an alternative retirement, another OPEB, as we usually call that, for employee benefits, but other public employee benefit. And then you would be almost like a 401k situation. We just never did anything. And kind of that 6.2% got absorbed into the budget as like, hey, that's a budget savings. And we treated it that way.
When did we opt out?
Oh, that had to be early 80s, like late 70s, probably almost as soon as we were incorporated. We were pretty much opting out pretty shortly after.
How many of our employees are aware that they don't participate in Social Security benefits?
A lot of them, and they're really wanting to get in. I mean, we'd have probably, I would say, depending on not to single out departments, we have some departments that have longevity that probably don't have as much of an interest, but we have a lot of, we have some departments that we have a lot of relatively new employees who came from other cities that almost all of them participate in Social Security. We're kind of the oddball in the recruitment. So quite a few. And the downside is that you can sit there and I'm sure y'all can appreciate this. There are times where, you recruit somebody and man, I'm coming to Dickinson and I love it. This is great. The brochure looks great. And we put very clearly, we do not participate in Social Security. Then about 3 months in, they're like, man, I'm bringing in more money than I calculated on my check. Well, am I getting more money than what I'm calculating on my check? Well, you probably didn't factor in that you don't pay Social Security. We don't take that extra 6.2% out. You don't participate in Social Security? No, we told you that at the recruitment. We told you that, you just kind of glossed over, but we don't participate in Social Security. So some people don't know until after they're already here.
I would think it's actually a little bit of a disservice. I think that there are probably a lot of folks out there that, they count on Social Security for their retirement income.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine we probably even have former employees that have been done a disservice because we weren't participating in Social Security. Mm-hmm. And their income is in retirement is adversely affected. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we could have a whole nother argument about the merits of Social Security and whether it's a good program or not, but I do think it's a disservice to use Social Security benefits as an opportunity to find a savings.
Mm-hmm. And again, if I knew what Dickinson's purpose was, I'm not sure, but I do know certain cities have used that as an opportunity to balance budgets and things of that nature historically in other jurisdictions.
I can tell you as a city council person, if we're not going to participate in Social Security, then I'm going to argue just as hard to spend this money somewhere else for the benefit of our employees for some sort of retirement plan. Sure. Based on the city.
Sure. Well, and that's kind of what I did want to bring to y'all's attention, because I'm sure maybe even some of y'all weren't aware that we didn't participate in Social Security as an employer too. I mean, it's a good discussion point to have.
It's sins of the past that needs to be fixed.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I was,
Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was going to say, it's good to know that it's optional. Yes, it is a lot of money to spend in one item, but I think it's worth it. In order for us to recruit the best and the brightest to work for the city, our benefits package needs to match. And I think we went the right way with reducing health insurance costs and also allowing the option as opposed to forcing them. Because I mean, my job, I have the option to opt out of Social Security. I didn't take it, but I have that option. But I think those things will help shore up us to be on an even playing field with some of the other cities in recruiting them. And I think that's a good direction to go.
All right, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to do a little bit of cut and paste here with the rest of the agenda. Let's go ahead and, as the city manager suggested, I'm going to make several changes, but let's start with, we'll move item 9C now. So item 9C, consideration of possible action approving a resolution by the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, in support of the abolition of the Office of County Treasurer in Galveston County.
Move to approve.
We have a motion approved by Councilman Brantley, a second by Councilman Wilson. And you signed up to speak, but I'm just going to call on you as a speaker so you can take a little more time if you'd like. So our County Treasurer, Mr. Doogie, if you'd like to, I know you requested this item on our agenda. We were happy to oblige. And if you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about why you did that.
Yeah, thank you. And I won't take any more than 3 minutes. There's a lot of people here that are, I think, here for other items. So I'll be cognizant of their time. I'm here to speak about the bagpipes lessons that the city's offering.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
They're only for residents.
We're
that you live
already
in League
full
City.
up. Sorry.
So I'm in support of that item. I'm also here in support of item 9C. So as all of you know, I believe I ran very transparently on the merits of eliminating the Office of County Treasurer, realizing savings for county taxpayers. So it's been done in 9 other counties in Texas. It's been done at the state of Texas level. And I don't think any city government in the state of Texas has an elected treasurer. So as a measure of good faith, my wife and I decided to forego the $117,000 salary. And I'm working full time to create a smooth transition at the county level and fulfill my promises of having a more streamlined, efficient government. So the resolution tonight is in support of what I'm doing. The resolution is not a requirement of eliminating the office, but it does take an action of the state legislature. And the state legislature likes to see that local governments are supportive and behind an idea. So I've had Kemah, League City, and Galveston County all pass it so far. Santa Fe, Friendswood, Jamaica Beach are all on the agenda next week and the following week. So by the end of probably February, I'll have every city in the county passing resolutions similar or the same as the one in front of you tonight. So thank you for all the work that you do as a 6-year council member in League City. I know that it's not always pretty. You have to put in a lot of long hours, but it's worth it. And I think the city of Dickinson is better because of y'all's service. So thank you. And I ask that you vote yes in support of item 9C. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'll kind of lead off some comments. So I teach Texas government as one of the classes I teach over at the college. And we talk about the Texas Constitution, and bless its heart, it's really old and it should probably be heavily overhauled, but that's likely not going to happen. But I think one of the things that you see in there is a requirement that, every county has to have a county treasurer. And to Hank's point, the irony of this is if he's successful, right, and he gets a legislature, the entire state of Texas will have to vote to determine if we cannot have a county treasurer in our county, because they'll actually have to amend the entire state constitution to say the county of Galveston will not have a office of county treasurer. People tend to vote yes on those, so we should be in good shape. But I do think, especially today, with a lot of just the auditing that's required at federal levels, at state levels, I mean, there may have been a time when that was a good idea, it was a requirement, but I do think that things that are handled internally, like we do here in our city. I mean, that's, to your point again, that's what the cities don't have, this office separately elected. So I definitely agree with the logic there. So are there other questions or comments? Councilman Simpson.
Yeah, Mayor, thanks. I applaud you for foregoing the salary and going off of what you campaigned for. I guess my question is more of a sausage making question. This is my first time being heavily involved in a legislative year. Are we confident that this will go before the body? Because last report I got, there were like 6,000 pieces of legislation that were supposed to go. And I would hate for something like this to die in a calendar or committee or something like that.
That is always a danger, but I don't know if you have some insight on that. I'm sure
Yeah,
you've been
so-
working on that.
That's a very good sausage making question. A lot of bills get filed at the state. Not all of them even get addressed. I think having an elected treasurer who ran and who is working full time to see it pushed through is a step in the right direction. It gives me confidence. Also, our Senator Mays Middleton and our Representative Dr. Greg Bonin are filing the bills. For those who don't know, Dr. Greg Bonin is the House Appropriations Chair, which is a very influential position within the state. I've met with 60 different offices so far for state legislators, and they've all been overwhelmingly supportive. They've either said they love the idea at its face, or it's a local issue and they think voters should be able to decide. So I have not had any negative feedback yet from legislators. So great question, but I'm very optimistic and hopeful that we're going to get it through the legislature.
A point of clarification is with regards to sausage making, right? You mentioned that you forewent the salary for the job. Does that mean you're mailing in the job, or are you doing the job every day?
So I'm doing the job. But part of the reason why I think it needs to be eliminated is the elected treasurer has not historically done a whole lot. So I'm going to the office, meeting with staff, managing a staff, making sure that the duties that are constitutionally required of the treasurer are being done. I have 4 employees that are currently doing the duties, and once we ramp down the office, those duties will move into other offices, such as the CFO, the auditor, the clerk. So there's other financial professionals within the county who will take over those duties. When you started off with your question, I thought you were going to say you have some unpaid labor for me to do in Dickinson. My wife said I can't do any more unpaid labor.
That's funny. No, I asked that question specifically, right? Because I guess my comment would be one of admiration, because I do realize that you run your own company and you took on this role because you feel strongly about this issue and eliminating this position. So I know that you're spending a lot of time fulfilling the duties of county treasurer. It's not that you decided not to take the salary and not do the job. It's that you decided to do the job and not take the salary. You still have to provide for your family, as you mentioned. I know, congratulations, you have a child on the way.
Thank
you. It's a huge amount of commitment, and I just want to recognize you for that and the job that you're doing, your commitment to the citizens of Galveston. So that's my comment, and that was the point of me asking that question, was simply to illustrate the fact that you're not just mailing it in, you're doing the job because you are committed to this issue. So
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll continue moving out of order here. And we'll move our other hot item to our 2 hot items up. We'll start with, let's start with item 8. No, I'm thinking of item 9A. Yes. I think. Yes, that's the one, right? Okay. Yeah, okay. Item 9A, consideration and possible action concerning a request to amend the official zoning map from conventional residential zoning district to general commercial zoning district for approximately 18.51 acres, being 500-foot depth on the south side of FM 517 for GCAD 161989 and 162057 between Cemetery Road to Shoreview Drive, with the legal description in the agenda. And I just want to note for just a moment that, just say something. If you're a regular at these meetings, you're used to me reading these long legal descriptions. And prior to me, Julie Masters for 15 years read long legal descriptions. This evening, our city attorney came up to me and said, you don't have to read all of that. And I said, are you kidding me? I don't have to read all that. And he said, no, just, you can do that. And then just say the legal descriptions in there. So let that go as a lesson to don't just do what those before you did, because you could be assuming some really stupid things. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. Okay. Yes. With that said, is there a motion? Or I think the city manager spoke to me about this before, and
Well, I was going to ask you guys to do, because talking with Michael Ross with the development firm, and also needing to get back with you guys on having the meeting put together for to kind of have a talk with the developer, key residents, and city officials with the holidays and ownership. We didn't have that meeting. What I was going to ask for is for a motion to table, if that's possible.
Motion to table.
Second.
but I'm definitely going to break the rules because I can't have a discussion motion to table. But we do have some people signed up. I would say, given that, if you still want to make your comments, you can make your comments. If you do not, given that essentially what this is going to mean is that it fails tonight because we have to resolve it within a certain period of time. So the motion's essentially going to be defeated because we're tabling it. So, and there'll be other conversations, I suppose. So there are a few of you signed up. So if you do still want to speak, please let me know, and you are very welcome to speak. You still would like to? Okay. On up. All right. And so William New, correct?
John Wilson.
Now, I'm trying to, I see some of you email, some of you have faces up here, and I'm trying to link the two because I've heard from a few of you. So, okay. If you would, you already said your name. If you'd say your address, please.
John Wilson, 1701 Coral Cliff Drive.
Okay.
Just a few comments I'd like for you, this council, to consider while we're tabling it as well. First of all, thank you for your time and thank you for your service. I think some of my main concern is that the property owner himself does not wish to have the property rezoned. He did not request it. I'm curious because the agenda says that a request was made. Who makes those requests? If the property owner does not make the request, then who does? I would think that since it's his property, he should have that option to make that request. So just wanted to throw that out. The city wants to rezone the property to commercial without having anybody willing to develop it that I know of. I think at the last council meeting, there was nothing on the table to build anything there on a commercial property. It was just, let's rezone it and then maybe something will come. And I'm just concerned about that as well. Currently, the entrance to our subdivision is one way in and one way out. And putting a commercial property at the end of our neighborhood is going to restrict our traffic or make our traffic getting worse than it is today with the school being right across the street from us. Getting out of our neighborhood in the mornings and getting in our neighborhood in the afternoon is a nightmare. And if anybody wants to travel down that way between 3:15 and 4:30, please feel free to do so. I think Councilman Decker, you asked me at the last meeting when we were discussing opportunities for commercial businesses. You asked me about a grocery store, whether or not I would be in favor of that or not. I believe that was Councilman Decker. I'm not real sure. And all I said was, no, I still would not be in favor of it, but I did not give you a reason why. The reason is coming into that neighborhood and you build a grocery store or any type of large commercial property, then you're going to have 18-wheelers coming into our neighborhood. And we have kids going to and from that school twice a day. And 18-wheelers coming into our main entrance, our only entrance currently into our neighborhood, I think that's just an accident waiting to happen. I would also like to mention my other safety concern. There are 460,000 children abducted every year. And I think if we put commercial property at the corner of 517 and Shoreview Drive, all we're doing is opening up a can of worms. Them kids go past that intersection into that subdivision twice a day. And the proximity between our neighborhood, 517, Highway 288, Highway 59, they're gone in an instant. So please take that into consideration as well. As a resident, when we bought the property, we were told from the developer or from the selling
real estate folks that it was going to be residential. And there was no need to worry about a commercial property. So we moved into the neighborhood with good faith, thinking that it was going to remain residential. There are other areas.
3 minutes is up, sir.
Okay. One more comment. There are other areas in the city that I think the city can concentrate on. There's the old Sears building sitting there for years. There's the old Sussin property on the feeder road on Highway 45. Let's concentrate on those before we change somebody else's property from residential to commercial. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else that still wanted to go ahead and speak on that? Go ahead.
Mrs. McDonald's have to say a lot. And it's basically about traffic concern on the community. And I would ask, I don't know whether you have, obviously we're going to have more discussion about it, which is good. I'd like to make a recommendation. My name is William New. I've been in Bayou Lakes since.
There you are. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
2014.
If you could give your address as well, please.
1748 North Meridian Greens Drive. So I know the council is challenged with getting more revenue for the city, and sales tax revenue is an important source. It seemed apparent to me at the last meeting that it was going to be pretty much a done deal. So I'm standing before you asking you to consider an amendment to the proposal, to your proposal that's currently on the table. And it's basically, if you look at, my concern is several, but the main one is if you look at the first page of my handout in the circle, it appears that someplace in that circle, there may well be an entrance into the commercial area. And if that's allowed, in fact, you can see on the curb opposite North Meridian Greens, they kind of draw a little cut in the curb there that would indicate, yeah, we can go in what used to be residential now soon will be commercial. The cut might not be there, it might be closer to the front. But the problem is once you do that, you have enormous traffic coming into the community. And that changes the look and feel of the residential community because now you have commercial stores and other things at the front of it. And so my recommendation is on page 2, is that you sequester or change actually from your proposal a strip of about 50 feet wide that runs along the curb of Shoreview, and to allow that to remain or become or remain, I'm not sure what it is now, residential. And therefore, the developer and the homeowners association could put in fencing, put in trees, put in landscaping that would befit a residential community that all of us who purchased, I purchased in 2014, others have purchased in 2006, is probably the first purchase in the neighborhood. But we all thought that we were going into a community, a residential community. And by putting a big commercial development right at the front of it does affect the look and feel of that. So in this meeting that's coming up, I would highly recommend that you consider the ability for the community to put in a fence or a wall, whatever we want, and put in land, keep it. There are a lot of disadvantages of this proposal to Bayou Lakes residents, but there are advantages to the town, and there's challenges that you're trying to solve, and I appreciate that. There are advantages to the developer. There are disadvantages. There's noise, there's dumpsters,
Sir, your time's up.
all that stuff. There are a lot of disadvantages. Lights at night, noise, traffic, parking, all that stuff.
Your 3 minutes is up, sir.
Okay. I just want to say that this is an ability to provide some benefit to the residents of Bayou Lakes, whereas everybody else is benefiting. We don't get any benefits. This is a choice.
All right. Thank you. Was there anyone else that want to go ahead? We've made a motion to the table. We can't really deliberate, but I do want to,
I just wanted to thank y'all.
okay.
I appreciate y'all taking the time. Michael Ross, 310 Woodstream, Friendswood. I'm the fee developer for the project, and I really wanted to thank the mayor, council, manager Melanson, for the ability to work with y'all on this project, because I also want to work with the residents as well. As I think every stakeholder that has an interest in the community should be involved in these type of projects. And I really appreciate your time. And I appreciate you knocking all those zeros off there.
Thank you. I just real quick do want to say something. Mr. Wilson brought this up. It's kind of public information. We actually are actively redeveloping both those areas that you mentioned. The Sears building. There's actually a gentleman here earlier who left. Was on the consent agenda, and the up there with the Suss's property that's actively under design, and they're doing a little construction up there too. So it has nothing to do with the rest of it. I'm not saying anything. You said that, and I just kind of like, well, we are doing that. I just wanted to tell you that. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's a motion to table. It was by Councilman Brantley, correct? Second by Councilman Simpson. It seems to be your show tonight, you two, on all these items. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We will then move on to item 8C. Yes. Okay. Conduct a public hearing concerning a request for a specific use permit for a vacation rental use in conventional residential zoning district for approximately plus or minus 1.16 acres located at 5122 Casa Grande Street, with the legal description in the agenda. Our first item will be staff presentation.
Mayor, Council, I'll be leading the discussion on this. As you can see, I am not Yvonne Briscoe, Senior Planner. She's unable to be here this evening, but hopefully I can fill in well enough for this. Casa Grande is a subdivision that's one way in, one way out, small subdivision, very, very small in the number of homes compared to most subdivisions in the region. At the end of that road, you'll see a property that is on the bayou that is, a large home that has been retrofitted to serve according to advertisements, the ability to rent a space for between upwards of 16 to 30 people, depending on the advertisement at hand. I want to be clear is that we have a very the permitting process involved in a special use permit is very clear for this usage needing to go through an SUP process. City of Dickinson, to try to bring this property into compliance to even apply for an SUP in the first place, the City of Dickinson had to expend over $30,000 in legal fees to get us into a place where we could get this application at hand. What you have is that you have a neighborhood that one of the reasons why this came to the attention of the residents was because of the lack of following the parking rules of the subdivision and blocking, because if you're going to rent a space to 16 to 30 people, that usually they all come with their own vehicle. You don't really carpool to an Airbnb. And so residents in this neighborhood had to endure some issues, not just with parking. They've also had to deal with noise complaints. There has been major issues involved. I bring up all of these things because the staff's recommendation is to disapprove this SUP for Casa Grande. And some of the reasons have to do with the history at some level, but also it's incongruence with the neighborhood as a whole. The character of this neighborhood doesn't really fit a property that could house up to 30 people. In discussions with our chief building official, Herman Myers, he also brought it to my attention that if they wanted to operate this property in the manner that they want to, they actually need to meet some international building codes that they currently are not following. Specifically, there's a whole list of requirements, basically what we call R1 requirements, especially if you're going to house this many people under one roof for these commercial purposes. So for a multitude of reasons, the staff is recommending disapproval because of many of the underlying issues of parking, the noise issues incongruent with a single family residential neighborhood, the lack of building code compliance to operate this manner of building, which would be R1 in the International Building Code. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And next up is the applicant presentation, if we have one this evening. Well, that figures. Oh, yeah, we do. I mean, if you don't have to present, but you can if you want.
It was all submitted, but if you guys have any questions, I definitely disagree with some of what was just said.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions, I'm here.
Okay, you will get a chance in a minute. There's an applicant rebuttal part if you do want to respond to anything, but all right. Our next item would be the public comments. So we have several here. Please, please keep it to within the 3-minute range. We do have quite a few people. We want to hear from all of you, but we also want to hear from all of you before midnight on Wednesday. So if you would, please endeavor to do that. First up is going to be Lindsay Suarez.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Suarez. I live at 5113 Casa Grande. I live right next door to the property. And I've already previously communicated with each of you about the laundry list of issues and incidents that have occurred: noise, traffic, safety, parking, lewd behavior. But tonight I want to address two things. First, some outrageous claims in the application that I read online. And then secondly, the fact that they have been operating without permits since June of 22. So the first claim in the application is there are over 700 vacation rentals in Dickinson, so it's okay for them to operate. And that's just simply wildly untrue. A simple search on Airbnb will prove that. The next claim is that renters will have limited interaction with the neighborhood. That is absolutely absurd, and there is a slew of people behind me who have been negatively affected by the renters of this property. The application says the rental would increase our property value because it would encourage other vacation investors to purchase nearby properties. So my question to you is that what you want for our city? For it to become a place where families are driven out by corporations so that they can buy up properties for profit? Or do we want to be a place that prides itself as a place to live and raise a family? The application says parties and events are not allowed. Quiet hours are to be observed and no street parking is permitted. Well, by my observation, those are words on a page because none of those have been upheld to date. The application says the property can comfortably sleep 30 guests. 30 people in a single family home is ludicrous. 30 people is a motel. It is not a single family residence. However, perhaps the most troubling fact might be that the owners have operated without permit for months. And when asked, why did you begin operation without a permit? One of the owners said he didn't know he needed it. Does anyone else find it preposterous that the co-founders of Beachbox, a vacation rental company, did not know that they needed appropriate permits to operate in our city? Are we to believe that someone specializing in the vacation rental industry has no idea that there are legal processes regarding running a business in the city? No, the truth, as it appears to me, is that these owners don't care about our city. They don't care about our processes, they don't care about our neighborhood, and they certainly didn't care about our zoning ordinances. They believe they're above us, they believe they're above the law, and they believe zoning ordinance don't apply to them. And they would have continued this operation if a judge had not ordered them to apply for this permit. But unfortunately, their business practices are not up for a vote tonight. The vote is between the quality of life of these residents and the desire of this corporation to turn a profit. So I hope you will prioritize our well-being over a corporation who neither values nor respects us. Thank you.
And next up, we have Lonnie Cox. Judge Cox, one of the last times I saw you, I was on the other side of jury duty, so I'm feeling a little bit of reversal here.
you get treated okay?
It was you. It was your court. You juggled for us a little bit, entertained us, and I appreciate you writing that day off till 5 o'clock. It was
Okay. I really don't know what I'm doing up here. So many more learned people have spoken, and I appreciate what city manager has said, as well as the staff and of course the speakers already. I'm only here because my wife is making me speak. But anyway, you've already heard enough about this. Starting in June, as you've already heard, these learned businessmen. These are learned businessmen. These are not amateurs. These are not first timers. These so-called learned businessmen came to Casa Grande, came to Dickinson, and I say learned, but they don't act like they're learned because they're not doing the things that learned businessmen should be doing if they want to carry out business here in Dickinson, Texas. They didn't seek a permit. Electrical permits. They didn't see concrete permits. And boy, we'll see the flooding when we see all of the concrete that was poured down there that'll block up Casa Grande. And they certainly didn't seek any kind of special use permit. And I guess they just thought that they'd slip in here and no one would complain. And maybe the city of Dickinson would not stand up and stand behind their citizens. Maybe they thought that would be the case. This so-called vacation rental it is a joke. It is not. I've already said it's not really a hotel or motel because they would have security people there. They would have people managing it. They'd have a front desk. They'd have some kind of an operation that would keep the place from being what I call it is Animal House, just like the movie Animal House, where you just got tons of people out there raising all kind of cane. That's what it really is. And so now these businessmen who tried to pull the wool over your eyes, tried to pull the wool over inspectors' eyes, tried to pull the wool over a state district judge a couple of times, and they're asking you to trust them and give them a special use permit. And so we, residents of Dickinson and residents, especially of Casa Grande, are asking you to deny that request for a special permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up is Bill Schick, who has never juggled for me to my knowledge. And neither did Judge Cox, just to be fair. He did not.
First of all, I want to say I don't want to ever have to follow Lindsay or Judge Cox in making a.
You got to be here faster. If you could, be sure to give us your address too.
Bill Schick, 2926 Mellows Lane. My property basically parallels Casa Grande. I'm going to make this very short. It's a wonderful neighborhood, single family residence, and a hotel or animal house, as Judge Cox aptly put it, does not belong at the end of their street. And I would urge y'all to deny this. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Galen?
Hi, Galen Nizer, 2926 Mellows Lane. And first off, I have to say, those that don't know Dewana, she is a true light of sunshine. She's wonderful. So you've heard all the things about the wiring and the cars and the traffic and all that, but one thing I wanted to address was the safety on the bayou. We all know that when you get 16, 30 people together, in their vacationing, sometimes they have a tendency not to consume soft drinks, iced tea, or water. They consume other beverages. And when you get those and they're jet skiing on the bayou, and where this house is on the bayou, it's the widest portion on the bayou. They are out there doing donuts. They have underage kids on jet skis, and they almost ran over me once, and I'm in a lime green kayak. And then besides, minutes later, they almost ran into a boat. So this just isn't good. I mean, people who live on the bayou, they're very aware of the issues of the bayou. They know where it occurs. They know where its low points. And you bring in people who just totally disrespect it. That's it.
All right, thank you. And next is Kathy Palmer.
My name is Kathy Palmer. I live at 5022 Casa Grande, which is about a half a block up. I'm in the middle of the street, and I've lived there since 1981. Because the owners of Crystal Cruise Investment submitted a request long after the fact for a special use permit, we have decided to come back to our city and to our Planning and Zoning Commission people to voice our request, which is to deny the permit. Our objections to this permit include the safety of our children, the wellness of our families. We object to the traffic. I have walked out of my front door on a Saturday morning to mow the grass, and somebody else's half car is on my lawn because they jumped the curb. There's no place else to park. I've counted 26 motorcycles on Galveston Motorcycle Rally Weekend every year, but it started this year with this place, and there's 26 motorcycles going down the street into this parking lot. So that's the parking. I have seen people, a young girl one night, David and I came back from Topwater after dinner, and we saw all these flashing lights, and there's somebody out there with all the gates open, and they're directing traffic into the backyard. That's not a backyard. That's a parking lot. First of all, let me just interject this in case I run out of time. We went to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the first time, and I must tell you, I was never have been so impressed. They listened to everything we said. They took into consideration every, concern that we had about our families. We want to live there and raise our kids. We have had to stop birthday parties. I grabbed a little boy about 5 years old, blonde-headed, on a bicycle, brand new two-wheeler, because a truck was coming down the street from that house and would never have seen him. I grabbed him off his bike and his bike. I have walked down there. There's not enough police in Dickinson to take care of all the complaints that could be called in. I've called them in, I've called in noise, and every complaint we've called in has been answered. But imagine the strain on the people that we have for what? They have denied the order of a judge. We've been to court twice in Galveston over this, and they were ordered to shut down, and they didn't do that. They advertised a fake birthday party in the front yard with those big signs. So somebody called, because that's what we were told to do, if we saw people going in there as renters, and it wasn't a renter, it was one of the owners. And when our fire marshal knocked on the front door, that's when they gave the city of Dickinson the restraining order not to let them rent anymore. So that's what we're dealing with. Why would we even consider doing business with people like this? They're dishonest. Oh, last thing before I run out of time. They incorporated in February of 22. They're doing business as Nautical Navy. 6 months after they incorporated, they now have 8 more names. Last thing. This chart shows, this is the holding company, or this whole conglomerate, and it's called GKYJ Holding Company. And they have 26, so it's the blue markings. They have 26 other businesses under that one name. And here's Crystal Cruise Investments right here. So if you wanted to get in touch with somebody, like somebody that, say somebody got hurt, or there was a fire, because all of the stairway, nothing comes to code. And we all know that because we've made the city aware of it, we've made the Planning and Zoning Committee aware of it, our mayor aware of it, and everybody's done what they can. But since we know it, if we don't inform a renter of that, and somebody gets hurt or dies, or drowns, or gets shot, that we're liable. And if y'all are liable, I'm liable. We're all liable because we all are involved in this. So this has so many different avenues to go down and so many reasons to say no. I can't think of a good thing about it. And I've been there since 81. And I've seen it all. And I'm tired.
Ms. Palmer, that's time. Thank you.
Well, this isn't just some little, park thing we're talking about. This is our city. And sometimes I think those changes maybe should be made to give me 30 more seconds.
All right, David Palmer.
My name is David Palmer.
Lived in Dickinson since 1949, except for a couple years I spent in the U.S. Army. And I live at 5022 Casa Grande. And I've got a little bit of follow-up to do to what Kathy has just presented. Number one, it will only take one group of renters to cause a catastrophe on our street. We've got 15 children on that street, probably this size to this size. One vehicle from that rental could run over one of those children, and it will affect a lot of people for the rest of their lives. And that's the kind of thing that y'all have to take into consideration when you talk about approving this permit or denying it. The other things that you have to remember is you've got absentee management, and you also have management that fakes concern by showing up here. Where have they been for the last 8 months? All they can do is get an attorney to speak for them. They can't speak for themselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up is Clark Wright.
My name is Clark Wright. I live at 5000 Park Avenue, and my wife would be here tonight. We were both at the zoning committee. Something happened at the end of that committee that disturbed me. I hope you take the recommendation because I think what it is what's needed. She would be here tonight, but she was with the dentist this morning. So I am here to speak in her stead. She's lived here all her life. I've lived in the house at Nicholstone since 1982, and someday would like to visit the bio like those people described. One thing that I felt like, I'm looking forward to the rebuttal. I hope there is a rebuttal because I want to hear. So far, I haven't heard anything from the other side to say that there's any good faith in this. And I think that's what's lacking here is good faith. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And next up is Stephanie Brown.
Good evening. Thank you for taking time to listen to us tonight. My name is Stephanie Brown and I reside at 5014 Casa Grande Street. And tonight we are discussing the special use permit for 5122 Casa Grande Street. This permit request affects my family. In my house, it's myself, my husband, and my 2 children. And my 2 children like to go outside. They like to ride their bikes. They have hoverboards. They have friends. And so this has really caused some issues for our family and concerns of safety. I know originally when this kind of all started, I did reach out to council and state my concerns. I know a couple have come out to visit our street. Our street is very unique. There's a cul-de-sac. We don't have sidewalks, none of that. And so if there are any questions, I definitely encourage you to come out and take a look at our street so you can kind of see exactly what we're dealing with. These tonight, everything you've heard are very valid reasons. Your Planning and Zoning Committee is not in support of this and is not recommending this for approval. You've heard valid complaints of speeding, which if I could count, the speeding really affects me where I'm located. I'm in the middle of the street. So every car that goes to that house has to pass by my house. The house isn't up to code. The owners have no respect for city rules, for their neighbors, or any other judge order that has been coming down since things have gone into court. One of the things that is very important, because I know that some people want to talk and say, oh, you know, there's hotel tax and all of that, that'll benefit the city. Location matters. And this here it should not be approved. There are so many issues, and there's not been one thing that anybody has come to the table to bring that, hey, you know what, this might be a good idea, because it's not. But lastly, one thing I want to talk about, I have a photo here, and if anybody wants a copy of it, I do have copies. But for the last few months, every single day, I have driven down to the end of the street, and I've taken a picture of the house. What you see in this photo is that there is a gate at the house, and it kind of goes across the driveway. And so whenever we think of gates, we think of boundaries. We think of trying to keep people out, trying to keep animals in. So this gate, every single day, stays open. And so one day, if God forbid, if a child wandered off and the gate was open, they would fall into the bayou. There's a pool there. There may be a hot tub. I'm not 100% sure. But who is going to have to be left to deal with that tragedy? If these owners cared about the residents and wanted to be a faithful neighbor, they would take their ownership seriously, because this is a massive safety concern, and Dickinson does not want to be on the news for this. Tonight, I am asking you to please deny this permit. And again, I do encourage you, if you have any questions or concerns, I would be happy to bring you onto our street to look. One other thing I do want to say is that our neighborhood is a one street. So there's one way in and one way out. And so this is kind of not the scenario for other VRBOs that have been approved in the city. And again, we should not have to ruin our daily lives because someone wants to make a profit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And lastly, I think we have Richard Cook.
My name is Richard Cook. I live at 5112 Park Avenue. I am diagonally across the bayou from the property. I know the property well. My friend used to own it. But all I can say is Friday nights, Saturday nights, we can sit in our house back from the bayou. We can hear yelling, screaming, basically partying, right? But it goes on every single night. When Finley owned the property, he'd have a party and invite people. It was small. We never had a problem. You know, I'm 100% against this. Finley closed his gate. You know, when he left, and he had multiple homes all over the U.S., and he closed the gate. He was very careful. These people don't. She's correct. Little child walks down there. It's the silent death. I'm 100% against this. You know, across you have the Nicholstone, the wetlands. We have a resident osprey, heron, eagle last night. You know, and you've got these people partying their butts off every weekend. It's wrong. I'm sorry. I love Dickinson. I love the bayou. I'm on it probably 3 or 4 times a week. This needs to be shut down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, we have Elizabeth Lessert. He was getting on to me for not calling you Betty, but you wrote Elizabeth. I was going to
I
say
know.
Betty, but you wrote that. So.
Well, that's my legal name.
Yeah.
I'm Betty Lessard. I live at 5033 Casa Grande, which I'm 3 houses up. And I support what everybody has said. The company has no regard for rules or no regard for what they were told to do. And my concern is, excuse me, my concern is when they started working on it, that they did not seek one permit. So nothing there is permitted and nothing there is up to code. And if a fire started down there, I would hate to see what all it would take away. And I appreciate your listening, and I appreciate all that you do, but I wish you would deny this. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes the public comments that we have down. So we move next to applicant rebuttal.
My name is Chad Griffin. I'm one of the two owners of Casa Grande. I live in Kemah, so I'm literally 15 minutes away from the house. I live on Bayshore Drive. I've got 4 rentals, or there are 4 VRBO Airbnb rentals on my street, so I totally understand this can be a heated argument, and there's neighbors don't necessarily want it. I've got a home directly behind me that's a vacation rental. I also have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my wife's pregnant with another. So I totally get it. We want our kids to be safe. That is 100% the goal. But my understanding is that short-term rental use is ordinary residential use. And so we've done everything the city asked from the time that we understood that we needed to get the permit. Yvonne told us on day one it was never going to happen. And so that's when we got our attorney involved with the TRO. Yvonne was very upfront and said, you're not going to get the special use permit. We did find it odd given that I didn't understand there were 700, but there's at least 50 rentals in Dickinson. And my understanding is only one of those has a permit. So I don't know if all of them are just unpermitted and just allowed to keep going. There's multiple homes on the bayou that are current rentals. Many of them are run by Vacasa that sleep, 20 plus. We would rarely, so anything over 14 people has to have an approval. And I can tell you, so some of the things like concrete, Judge Cox, we never poured any concrete. I'll show you, give you a tour of the backyard. Ma'am, so I'm saying there was no concrete.
Yeah, we can't have like back and forth. You just
There's a ton of things here that are not accurate. We put up cameras at the beginning of October. Since that happened, we also hired Ranger Security to go by nightly. I own the property and want the best for it. Like, I don't want parties at the house. I don't want people tearing things up. I'm going to end up paying for that. So it's in my best interest to keep the property pristine. And yes, I do own many short-term rentals in Galveston, Jamaica Beach, and all over. This is the only one in Dickinson. And my understanding, again, and the Texas Supreme Court was fairly clear about residential use. And whether it's 31 days or 2 days, it's residential use. We never have anything shorter than 2 days, which is why I say 2. But yeah, I want the best for the neighborhood. I want the best for the home. I want the best for the community as well. I'm not some foreign, I live 15 minutes from the house. I'm at the house before, during the remodel process, which, by the way, we didn't get permits because we painted, we did flooring, we did countertops, we did backsplash. We didn't do anything that required a permit. We didn't pour concrete. None of that requires a permit. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I want the neighbors to be happy as well. And not, if there's things that we can do, like the gate, I didn't realize that it had been left open consistently. We can easily take care of that. Things like that, 100% can be done. But I feel like, again, since the cameras have been up and NoiseAware was installed, we haven't had any issues whatsoever. Ranger Security has confirmed that. I have pictures of the vehicles that are there when they're there. I'm sure if you guys show in the presentation, there's parking for more. We allow up to 6 vehicles. Started that in October as well. All of those have to be parked within the gate. So there shouldn't be street parking. We don't want street parking. We don't want people affecting neighbors. Again, I live in a short-term rental community and totally see that and get that. They're all around me, and I understand what it is to live with those. But I'll leave it at that unless you guys have any questions at all for me.
We can't ask questions at this point, but
okay.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to, and with this, we'll adjourn the public hearing. We'll move on to item 8D, an ordinance of the City of Dickinson, Texas, amending Chapter 18 zoning of the City of Dickinson Code of Ordinances, granting Crystal Cruise Investments LLC a specific use permit to allow the operation of vacation rental on a 1.16 acre tract of land located at 5122 Casa Grande Street, Dickinson, Texas, 77539, in a conventional residential zoning district, providing requirements and conditions for the permit, providing a penalty in an amount not to exceed $2,000 for each day of violation of any provision thereof, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for publication, and providing an effective date.
Move to deny permit.
All right, there's a motion to deny by Councilman Wilson. Is there a second? And a second by Councilman Decker. We'll do discussion. I'd have a few things to say off the bat. Just a few things that have come up. So one, I just want to clarify for the residents that when someone applies, we have to take the application. We have to have a public hearing. That's what the law tells us. So we have to do this. So there you go. It's not the fact you take an application does not necessarily mean that the city is inclined to approve it or not. Just FYI. I've been out to the street. I've talked to several of you, and I actually want to thank all of you for being patient and understanding and working with the city and kind of organizing to let us disseminate information to all of you when there were problems. I want to thank you all that have participated in some of the legal proceedings that have unfortunately propped up from this. And now I'm going to kind of say a few things about the issue itself. Let's just kind of trace the course of events that got us here, which was done earlier. So we started with, Airbnb just operating, no permit, right? So then we tell them this, they don't apply for a permit. And I understand they said the permit wouldn't be denied, but I don't think that's her telling you don't apply for the permit. I think that's just saying, I don't think it's going to get approved. Okay, you still have to do it. Certainly that doesn't mean you can keep operating. And we can have a legal debate. I mean, it's the honest thing is what's probably going to happen here is this is going to get denied and the courts are going to sort it out and your tax money is going to get spent on what's a fool's, this is just foolish that we're even having to do this. So there we go. So then we play games, having fake birthday parties to do gotchas with city staff. That was cute. Ms. Brown, you mentioned a hot tax. We're not even receiving that. So we're not even getting the tax money from the Airbnb, as I understand it. So that's not even an advantage. The applicant is correct. I have no doubt that there are illegal Airbnbs operating in this town right now. I also have no doubt that there are people that are speeding in this town right now and not getting caught. But you know what the difference is when it reaches a point where it becomes problematic, and then that's when we deal with things. I want to tell you all about that short-term rental that we approved recently. Do you know what they did? They came in. They followed the rules. They applied for the permit. They talked to all the neighbors. They got buy-in. They got them to understand, and they haven't caused problems. And this council approved that permit. And so I would actually say, in a sense, I'm glad that they did this because they showed us how it's going to be. So better to do that than come in and say it'll be all hunky-dory. We approved the SUP, and then it's a nightmare, right? So I don't see how we could possibly vote to approve this. So, what this is, there are, I believe, in property rights. People have right to do what they want to stay with their property, but it's also constitutional that there's zoning, that people have to follow processes, and it's long held precedent. You cannot do absolutely anything that you want with your property. And one last thing, I talked earlier, but I teach government class. The basic limitation on your rights is your rights end when they infringe on the rights of others. So if you are using your property or your rights in such a way that is disrupting everybody else, that's where the line is drawn. And to me, this is a clear example of that case. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Councilman Wilson.
And what I want to make clear, I've never voted for an Airbnb in the city. There may be some that are operating illegally. That's true. There also may be some that have Dickinson addresses that are not necessarily Dickinson. I do not believe they belong in neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, I brought a copy of an ordinance to this council a year and a half ago or before our current city manager's here. And they were supposed to have been reviewed, and I have not seen it again. This problem is not unique to us. Galveston deals with it all the time. A lot of cities are dealing with it. Like I said, I'll state one more time. These facilities do not belong in somebody's neighborhood. The fact that they go on in Kemah, that's Kemah's problem. That's not ours. That doesn't mean that we should grant these just because it's Kemah. They found a way. B&Bs? Yeah. They found a way, before you had to have a bed and breakfast, but there were certain rules for bed and breakfast, which meant that you had to serve breakfast and you had to live on the site. Well, you don't have to do any of that now. This is why this stuff has become real popular with it. Like I said, I don't agree with them. They don't belong in neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, Councilman Simpson?
Thank you, Mayor. My mom always said that the way you start is the way you finish when it comes to dealing with people. And we got off. We got off on a really bad foot. I understand that there are other possible vacation rentals. But like I said about speeding, if I get pulled over for speeding, I don't get to tell the police officer, oh, somebody else was speeding before me, and so I should get off. Starting with litigation in order to go through this, the other potential short-term rentals have not had loads of neighbors complaining about it. So obviously there's something different about who the clientele that is here versus the clientele that is in any one of those, if they are even in the city limits of Dickinson. This normally the litigation comes after, but we started off with litigation and to not make a presentation to there wasn't a presentation made at planning and zoning, because I went to that one as well, is interesting in and of itself. Secondly, just because staff says something does not mean you don't go through the process. There have been things that staff has said was going to be routine that this council has denied, and there have been things that staff has said wasn't going to happen that this council has approved. So this blatantly has been a disrespect for the process, when we've had examples of people come through that got buy-in from their neighbors, got buy-in from the people involved, and have worked through the process. It's not impossible. I'm not anti short-term rental. I'm not big on a blanket ban, but if we could do something to get the buy-in from the people and show that there's some sort of consideration in the process, as opposed to just, well, I got my paperwork and give me what I want. I think that would be a little different. But thank you, Mayor. That's all my comments.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions?
Mayor, if I can take one, once council's done, I was going to make a couple of comments.
I'm not saying any, so, oh, you did? Okay, now you're both speaking.
I'm just
Okay,
trying to put it together.
okay, well, we'll go to Councilman Linton.
Go ahead, Councilman Linton.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Brantley. When this first happened, as usual, with a couple of things that are not a subject matter expert on, I got my Google PhD in these bed and breakfasts. In fact, when I was at a state training, required training session or classes in San Antonio, I talked with a couple of lawyers for the state and TML, and there's a lot of cities that are having problems with this. And you had mentioned, Councilman Wilson had mentioned the city of Galveston. And it seems that there are a lot of federal and state regulations that are, the cities are trying to address these issues when they occur. And then the federal and state regulations then prevent them from doing so. And some cities have actually outlawed them. That's the result in some cities. I'm not saying that we should do that. The example that was given earlier about the bed and breakfast that are the Airbnb, or however, short-term vacation rental, I believe is the proper term, that they submitted the proper permits. They went through the process. They spoke with the neighbors, and it was approved. And that's how it's supposed to be done, and that's not how it was done here. And I know that that was upsetting. Also, that the city has spent so much money on legal proceedings trying to address this issue is also upsetting. And also, I have plenty of emails from people that live in that neighborhood. And I've received phone calls from some of them who are here tonight. And I've listened to all of y'all, and I am going to vote against this, and hopefully that we can, the other potential, and then there's the separate issue of these Airbnbs in the city of Dickinson and whether or not all of them should be disallowed or allowed. That's a discussion for another time. But this one, I'm going to vote no against because it just wasn't handled the way it should have been. I just wanted to make that clear.
Councilor Brantley, I think you're out of time. You got to do it now.
I will say this. I stood on Mrs. Brown's front porch and I listened to the folks from Casa Grande. I told them at that point in time, I'm not opposed to Airbnbs. Okay. I will also say whataboutisms is a poor legal argument, but I'll entertain it for just a second. Yes, there are Airbnbs that operate in Dickinson that have not attained a permit. I will tell you how they end up in a different situation than this Airbnb. They don't get complained on. They don't have folks coming to council or calling the police department or making code enforcement aware of problems at the house. They manage the house. Being reactive instead of proactive is not a good management practice. Okay, so I commend you for taking steps, whatever steps you've taken, noise aware, range of security, whatever. Okay, I commend you for that. However, I would ask any of the residents on Casa Grande, one of the statements that was made was short-term rentals are allowed in residential areas because they're supposed to fit into the residential area, right? Well, you should be good neighbors, all right? I know of the email I got on August 17th from Ms. Brown asking City Council to come out and meet with her. So the ownership of this home has known about problems since at least the first part of August. My question would be to the residents of Casa Grande, how many times has your neighbor come and sat in your living room and tried to come up with a neighborly solution for the Airbnb at the end of the street or the short-term rental at the end of the street? Has he once knocked on your door? Has the ownership of this house once knocked on your door and asked you, how can we come up to an amicable solution? Not once. So you knew the problem existed, and instead of trying to work in a neighborly fashion in a residential area, that's not what you chose to do. What you chose to do is sue the neighborhood. So I, like the rest of council, I'm sure, will be voting no.
Theo, you had
I
something
just
you
wanted to color in a couple of things. First, I want to address to your point, Councilman Brantley, the whataboutism issue of obviously we do have issues that we will be working with other short-term rentals that are currently out of compliance. That doesn't stop us from the current ordinances as they exist. What has come to us is that this operates today and is causing not just a nuisance, but a public health and safety issue that is before us that's kind of above and beyond just the special use permit. That's why the fire marshal, code enforcement, police department have been so heavily involved at this property, and why you hear such a resounding message from the entire neighborhood. I want to also make clear to you guys that when staff talks with any applicant, normally what we try to do is say, this is where your application is going to fall short. We have seen how councils react to certain things, or you need to address these issues or else it's going to fail. When this whole thing started, basically, as far as I can tell from the paperwork and what we've been working through over the last several months, not just in this council chamber, but also in courtrooms, are incomplete applications. Yvonne was very much involved, and we have all the lack of documentation that was received once it came to our attention, and we actually tried to work with the owner to say, hey, look, you're going to come into compliance, you're going to apply for an SUP. One of the big issues was they were already operating 4 months in the neighborhood without a permit, and we were already getting complaints. So yes, that's probably going to be an uphill battle kind of in the start. So obviously addressing the issues of the neighborhood, addressing the fact that you're talking about 16 to 30 people. Of course, my single family home, I don't know how I would ever fit 30 people to live in that home, because that's what we're talking about. Right? I mean, this is congruent use. I have a feeling that that's going to get challenged at some point in time, especially up to 30. But I say all that to say is that, so once it started becoming an issue that they knew, the ownership knew that they were kind of digging a hole instead of stop digging the hole, we decided to keep shoveling deeper. I want you to understand is that, so we're already getting inundated. We are a small staff, small city. Public health and safety, police department, fire marshal's office, code enforcement office is engaged fully on this because of the rampant calls that are coming in. And so what this ownership decides to do is to make a fake situation to say that another rental has happened to lure our fire marshal out, who could have been doing other work instead. Could have been doing, I don't know, things like fire protection and education. But instead decided to use that as the opportunity to file and laughed as as serving the papers to her. And, to serve us with a TRO that when we went to court, we got overturned. And I also want to say is that in that TRO, in its overturn, it was also said that you need to stop renting this property. You have 2 more rentals in the month of October. Do not rent this property anymore. We had to go and file in our own TRO to stop them from renting the property anymore. Okay? And thankfully the court, and why we're here today is because the court saw what this ownership group was doing and said, you need to go through the SUP process. We're not overly restrictive. This is not, we don't have a blanket prohibition. Why did it come to this point, basically? And so I just wanted to make a couple of things clear and to kind of color in some of the council comments of saying, like, how did we get to this point and what is the future relationship with this ownership? If it's anything like the past, it's not the most fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I always bring TROs to my birthday party too. So, all right, let's take this to a vote. This is a motion to deny. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will get back on track. We're going to go to item 8A. Conduct a public hearing concerning a request for a subdivision variance from the minimum 200 feet or maximum 1,200 feet block length requirements of Appendix A subdivisions. Section 8, Standards and Specifications, Subsection H, Blocks of the Code of Ordinances of the City, with such variance allowing a maximum 2,622.23 foot block length on certain portions of the property for approximately plus or minus 47.23 acres located at 302 Avenue J and legally described as Abstract 1M, Austin Survey South, parts of lot 2, 3, and 4, close ROI 2-0 McGregor. And I did it again, even though I don't have to.
I thought you weren't going to read that.
I'm trying. It's going to be a hard habit to break, even though I don't want to do it.
You're a lemming.
It's like stopping smoking. Except I get no pleasure out of it. Okay. We will start with the staff presentation, which we'll turn it over to Not Yvonne.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council. Again, I'm in your stead, Theo Melanson, City Manager. I will take blood pressure medicine shortly, and I should be back to normal soon. All right, so what we have here is we have subdivision. This has actually come before us before because we had a long about, what added up to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 feet of a cul-de-sac, which due to public health and safety, you get a fire engine to the end of that cul-de-sac. That's can be problematic. Obviously, if there's street parking, it becomes an issue. So we kind of sent that back saying, do some work on this, come back and let's work on this. What I would tell you is that, we no longer have a cul-de-sac at the end of the road. What you see is that there's in presentation, what they are now presenting is at the kind of the end of Marker Oaks Drive. You'll see where it would have been a cul-de-sac on the far right end, or I think that would be north if I'm paying attention. You'll see that there was a cul-de-sac at the end, but now they've created an outlet toward Avenue J. So that takes care of at least the cul-de-sac portion. It doesn't really change the length of the city block. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here is that you actually have two issues. You have, you have a long Marker Oaks Drive. You have a long Avenue J Drive. This was submitted to our planning and zoning. They did recommend approval. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the approval, the decision for that approval, because I think it's important to understand. So we're looking at a rural residential development because there are no water and sewer services from WCID across the bayou to provide water and sewer, septic and well water. For those of you who aren't as familiar, it takes at least an acre of land. And so when you're looking at normally our rules deal with residential development that would be tighter development. You're talking about, could be as small as 6,000 square feet, or what was sometimes could be as small as about 1/7 of an acre if you're on the small end. You could have larger, but a lot of our developments are, 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, so forth. So what would be a city block would be much more much more residential structures per block than in this situation where you have like 1 acre and maybe even larger lots for this subdivision. So it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have our block designations when you're talking about a maximum of 1,200 feet. You could have a maximum of 1,200 feet be less than, you could have 8 to 12 houses, which would be a normal city block would be in that 8 to 12. So that's why the P&Z said they would like for us to consider allowing it, because it is not dense in any way, shape, or form. That being said, there are some conditions regarding the recommendation to move forward with the Avenue J block, as well as with Marker Oaks. One is to there on the new street that's going to be branched off from, if you can go back a slide, if you don't mind for me, on this new Marker Oaks Drive that kind of goes out, jets out to Avenue J going down the page, really having that renamed for public safety purposes, so that if to be able to designate that if it's one of these 4 houses that or 2 houses, whatever, that is on a different street, it's on a different part of the subdivision. It's more of a kind of a it was kind of in line with kind of 911 best practices whenever you do the addressing, instead of having this kind of continuation, turn the corner and it's still the same street. The other thing too is that if I'm going off of what I have here, is that if they were allowed a variance on both of these, the western boundary line of the proposed subdivision to have a 1,475 linear foot block length, and the other Ashton Oaks and Marker Oaks Drive, and this third to be named street of 1,837.4 linear feet, for those of you counting, so this is supposed to be a gated community, because that was one of the issues, was there was no access for the properties to the east of this property to have any access. And if this was going to be a public street, those properties need to have an opportunity to tie into that street. Well, if you see the subdivision, it's a line of houses on that upper side of it, which is going to be, that kind of, on the top end of that development. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to gate it and make it a private. They're offering it to be a private road that never comes into the city system, so that they don't have to create roads that then lead out to property that they don't own, that they're not going to develop, and would actually handle some of the issues of access to the public on that road. There's still opportunities for access to that property from a different street. That's the next street over. So anyway, that's kind of where we left off last time. This is an alternative plan to what they had offered us in the past. And really at this point, if there's an applicant presentation, we'll let them speak.
Yeah. Next will be applicant presentation. Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is James Kernicle. I'm with High Tide Land Surveying. We prepared the plat for the client. Marker Oaks Ranch is to be a gated private subdivision with private roads. It's my understanding that the civil engineer in the project is proposing to reflow the drainage from the existing lake from the old Chaparral Club golf course. Currently, it flows to Avenue J. They're proposing to flow it the other direction toward the west property line, and installing a large ditch, which would prohibit any road crossings there anyway. And that ditch would ultimately flow to the bayou. And he feels that would be a better drainage option than what's currently out there. We did, since the last iteration, we did add that connector street there. Changing the name of the street is not an issue at all. We also added, if you notice, there's that little elbow kind of bump there that would aid in any fire or EMS vehicles that need turnaround in the center of the project there. The lots are supposed to be 1 acre, and that's to accommodate well and septic. Therefore, there will not be the need for city water and utility to be installed out there. They're calling them estate lots is their tag for that. That's really the gist of it. If there's any questions, I'm available to answer those.
Okay. Can't ask yet, but yeah. Okay. Next item would be public comments, of which there are none. No need for an applicant rebuttal, so we'll adjourn to public hearing and move on to item 8B, approving a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving a request of Mr. Sturvan Blesky on behalf of Cada International LLC for a variance from Section 8H blocks of Appendix A subdivisions of the City of Dickinson Code of Ordinances to allow the owner to file plats and plans reflecting a block length exceeding the limits required, I have to read this one, required under the code for approximately 47.23 acres of land generally located at 302 Avenue J, Dickinson, Texas. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Simpson, second by Councilman Linton. Any discussion?
I guess if I remember correctly, the first one was just a straight shot into the cul-de-sac. And now this one gives us 2 ways out.
Yes.
Plus a bump in the middle for fire to turn around. Just wanted to say it for my clarity.
Staff is recommending approval of this.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there are a couple of conditions. One is the under condition of renaming that one jut out street that we discussed. Another one too is obviously this is a first reading. So we have a second reading. We do need to make sure that the fire marshal's comments on it, working with our volunteer fire department, building official and Yvonne on planning to make sure that if there's any other staff comments before we come back. But overall, the main conditions would be making sure that fire marshal and the other thing too is we want to maybe, and because we don't really have a design standard to this, is working with the developer by the next reading and for final approval, kind of what the responsibilities, I know it's easy to say, well, that's a private road, it's gated, it's behind there, but since we've never had really worked with this before, is really having a definitional outline of the responsibilities of the party. So, I mean, it's something that most cities have. And so we'll probably bring that to you guys as well as a condition as well. Just say, we're just to be clear of what your rights, your responsibilities are as an HOA to the property owners. It's not the city. And this is what you're expected to maintain, that type of thing.
Other questions or comments?
No, I
Councilor
would like
Brantley.
a motion to amend to include the conditions as recommended in the commission report, November 15th, 2022.
Well, okay, before you do that, there's an easier way we can do it. Do you?
I was
agree
under
with-
the impression my motion to approve was with the recommendations.
Okay.
Do I
guess
need to
it
state
technically
that?
probably was not, but
Just clarify it for the record.
Okay, yeah,
so we're good.
I
We
would
got
like
you.
to clarify
Okay,
it for
no
the.
problem. Any
My
other
bad.
questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let me see here. What are we? Item 9. I'm a little lost, but that's just a general thing with me. I think we're into 9. We're 9A or 9B? 9B. Okay, 9B. Yes, thank you, Anna. Item 9B, consideration and possible action concerning a request for a specific use permit for a church in a general commercial zoning district for approximately 0.86 acres located at 3717 Highway 3 and legally described as Abstract 19, Perry and Austin. Oh, it's in that thing.
Move to approve.
It's in the thing. Motion approved by Councilman. I'm never going to quit doing that. Motion approved by Councilman Brantley. Wish you'd never told me that, Justin. Is there a second? I can't second.
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Councilman Linton.
This is the second reading, correct?
I believe so.
Second and final.
Yeah. Well, we will, we'll just, I'm not sure. We're going to kind of wait for Councilwoman to come back. We'll just kind of.
So how about Georgia?
You could read that again.
Just keep reading it.
Yeah.
Just keep reading.
Technical
Julianne, can you do
details.
that presentation again?
And the problem is we have done all the other items other than executive session, so I can't even, I could just move to something
It's
else.
funny that you
but-
brought up Georgia because I was going to mention the college football national championship in my city council comments, but didn't want to risk offending any of the TCU fans.
And so I'm sorry, that is off topic and out of order. That is not, I didn't go to TCU, but
Come on, you're from Wichita Falls. Come on, man, that's close enough.
I didn't, yeah. No.
No.
We have people in Wichita Falls that root for OU, for God's sake. That's a whole other situation.
Yeah. Well, we'll hope that. Well, since I'll be somewhat non-substantive, but I was going to say is that for this item, just wanted to, just as a reminder, dealing with the church, is that there will be some special conditions. So when the time comes for a motion, we do have a list of conditions. So FYI,
Already did the motion, so
I'm just saying is that I'm talking about we may want to amend it at a later moment. That's all.
I'd like to amend my motion to include the conditions as recommended.
And we'll talk about those.
okay. Councilman Linton, are you okay with that?
Yes.
All right. If you want to maybe discuss that, Theo.
Yeah, well, let's because I got to I'm gonna kind of do a staff presentation for you because Yvonne told me to.
Yeah, we normally don't do it on these, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean,
on the second reading, but go ahead. Since we have some conditions, go ahead and
well, you
lay
also
them
have a 3-2 vote from P and Z, so I think it's important to
Yeah,
understand
go ahead,
that
go
whole
ahead.
conversation. So so last time, the reason why this is not in a consent agenda is because this did have some split voting. So I did want to kind of review with you guys some of the conditions for approval that staff is recommending off of the 3-2 vote of the planning and zoning for approval. With all the recommendations of staff is number one, that certificate of occupancy must be approved and issued prior to operating a church at the subject property. Number two is that the SUP approval is limited to Suite 1A with 2,050 square feet, basically what they are applying for today. Three is that the adequate parking must be available and that the applicant must provide calculations showing the minimum parking requirement is met. The following information must be provided: the operating hours of all tenants and the number of church seats. That helps with the calculation of the parking. And lastly is must not object or contest the sale of alcohol within the vicinity for current and future surrounding businesses. Those are the conditions that have been set forth by staff.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we will take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We might need to sound off on this one. Well, hold on. I already know you always vote against these, but I vote aye. Councilman Brantley, or
Aye.
you vote aye. Anyone else voting aye?
Aye.
Okay. Councilman Linton and Councilwoman Simpson. Okay. No.
No.
Councilman Wilson and Decker voting no, and
One abstention.
and he is abstaining. Councilman Simpson. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item 10A, executive closed session, consultation with attorney, section 551.071 Texas Government Code, discussion with attorney regarding contemplated/pending litigation and regarding matters protected by the attorney-client privilege, specifically a settlement offer from the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. Item 10B, Texas Open Meetings Act, section 551.074 Government Code, personnel matters, consideration and possible action concerning the employment, appointment, removal, or evaluation of a public officer or employee, to wit, the city manager. We will adjourn into executive session at 9:27 p.m. Convene from executive session at 10:24 PM. Move on to item 11, action items from executive session. Item 11A, consideration and possible action concerning settlement offer from Windstorm Insurance Association discussed in executive session.
The settlement offer of $880,000 from the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association and to authorize the city manager to execute all documents to finalize the settlement.
We have a motion from Councilman Brantley, a second by Councilman Wilson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I believe we have no other items for consideration. That'll take us to item 12, adjournment.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Councilman Wilson, second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.